So next up, we have two awesome guests, changing the world of literacy one program at a time.
And Lindsay and I want to welcome our guests. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Jatali Bellanton, excuse me, founder of Kids Who Bank, and also Nan J Morrison, President CEO of the Council for Economic Education. Welcome, ladies. Now, how did you generate the idea behind this?
So I worked in finance for 13 and a half years, and I had all this information in my brain. And when I became a mother, I started to look for books that would share that same information with my son. And a lot of the books were very dictionary formatted. And I just didn't think that was going to be good enough for a kid to learn finance. I said, who likes to read a dictionary? Not often many kids want to do that, right?
Like nobody.
So I went through a phase I did like reading dictionary, but, I was a bookworm and I just wanted to learn big words. And then, so when I was looking for this book, I couldn't find it. And then I decided I was going to write my own children's book. And then a children's financial literacy book turned into a finance curriculum. And then a finance curriculum turned into Kids Who Bank.
Kids Who Bank. I think that's great. Reaching the kids where they are, right? Not going over their head with a lot of content, but keeping it simple.
I agree.
Keeping it simple. And so, Nan, tell us more about the work you do with the Council for Economic Education.
Well,
or what you call? You said CEE. That's what
CEE
you told me.
Is easier to say, shorter. So we teach K through 12 kids about personal finance and economics so they can make better decisions for themselves, their families, and their communities. We work with the teachers, so we provide them about $50,000 a year offline and about $1 million a year online with professional development training for themselves and resources to use in the classroom. And like your initiative, we also use hands-on active learning, because who wants to just be told a bunch of stuff? You want to get up and run around the classroom, do trading games, use jelly beans to learn about compound interest. Don't eat the principal on that one. So that's what we do. We've been around for 70 years. I was also in the private sector and joined about 9 years ago.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, my question to you is, we all know this subject is important, but why do you think it's particularly important to teach kids about this?
So when I worked in the finance world, I met a lot of adults. It didn't matter their background, if their class, their race. They all seem to have this issue with budgeting and wants versus needs. And in my personal opinion, we start to teach our children from a young age the difference between budgeting, what is a want, what is a need. So I felt like if we were to take those same adults, because when you become an adult, it's harder to lose a bad habit. But when our children are young, they're learning their habits, right? For instance, I have a son, he's 4 years old. From the age of 2, both his dad and I started tag teaming him when it comes to earning his toys. So he loves Hot Wheels cars. Every time we went to the supermarket, it became a thing. Can I have $1 Hot Wheels car? And it's like $1.07, $1.25. So we were like, okay, you have to earn it. So every day he would put his toys away. And by putting his toys away, that would lead towards him actually now learning that he has to earn it. And then, as a parent, we had to stick to it. So if there was a week he didn't put his toys away for that day, then we didn't give him the quarter. And when we got to the supermarket and he's like, he wants his toy, I said, well, you didn't earn enough money this week to buy your toy. And we had to really stick to that. But we noticed now that it's 2 years later, he does it instinctively without questioning it. And when he wants a new toy, he goes, do I have enough money to buy this toy? Right? So he starts to ask the important questions that a lot of adults, we seem to have issues discussing.
Habits. Yeah.
So it's learning good habits from a young age, and I think that's really important because it helps us to become adults that are financially responsible.
Well, train up a child, right? A proverb.
Yes.
So according to MarketWatch, a MarketWatch op-ed rather, more states are requiring more financial literacy courses, but there's a slim supply of qualified instructors. Studies show 1 in 5 adults have taken personal finance courses in college or the workplace.
And a University of Wisconsin study confirmed that more than 80% of teachers do not feel confident teaching personal finance courses. I'm not sure if it's 80% of all teachers or it's 80% of economic related teachers, but do you think teachers who are unqualified are the reason of lack of financial education?
So we're the people that work with the educators. So first, I couldn't agree more with, when you start young, they have the language, the grammar, the vocabulary. So it's just there. It's part of their everyday life. So I love that. So teachers are just like anybody else, any other American struggling to figure out what's what. So that's why an important part of our mission is actually providing the training to the teachers so they have the knowledge for themselves, and then they feel confident in teaching their kids. One of the challenges of getting it into the teachers is that a lot of states don't require it, so there's no incentive. But we meet a lot of teachers who are doing it just because they know it's important and they want to make sure that their kids have these tools, especially kids who are growing up without, a lot of wind at their back. So for those students, it's particularly important.
Well, and to add to that, I feel like teachers are just regular human beings, yes? And our average, there was a statistic that was released that said that the average adult doesn't have even $400 in emergency savings, which is really sad when you think about it. But that means that average adult is also a teacher. So I feel like they do need that training. I don't know if that's necessarily why they might shy away from it, but there's a lot of things in a textbook when it comes to math, science, and the list continues, that the average teacher learns, and I feel like this would be equally easy to add into the equation, because at the end of the day, it is textbook, right? To learn about APR and compound interest, or learning about what is a credit score and teaching the basics, those fundamentals to a kid. Even our facilitators, we have about 15 teachers currently in the school systems, and some of them are former teachers who worked for the DOE but didn't know financial literacy. Within 5 to 6 weeks of a training program, they were able now to even say things that they speak so confidently about the subject that I'm like, all it really takes is some training.
I agree, and you mentioned all these other subjects. We invest so much as a country in teaching students about a lot of things that will get them to graduate from high school, big milestone, to help them figure out what the next step is for them that makes sense. And yet we don't give them this key tool in the toolkit of economic mobility so that when they get there, they don't know what to do. And we have to fix that.
And I know part of your work, Nan, is to really advocate for more programs and resources in schools. And then you are an advocate, Jatali, your role is to really get this book in their hands. So there's a partnership here. I'm sensing there has to be some work that could be done to increase the visibility of financial literacy in schools.
Well, we merge with other organizations that teach financial literacy all of the time. I always say to people, it's not about my program in particular getting to the forefront. It's more about financial literacy, period, getting to the forefront.
Right. In fact, we just merged with a rather large program called Invest in Girls, which I think all of us are smiling. They started up in Boston. They're a great program, and they focus on teaching financial capability to high school girls, but also to introducing them to careers in finance and financial services, which is a place that really lacks for women. So we want to give them the opportunity to see what it looks like. So yes, I agree. We'd like to partner too.
Now, your organization, you say CE, right? The Council of Economic and Education conducts a study. The survey of the states takes a deeper look into the K-12 economic and financial education in the U.S., right?
And the survey shows there's been little increase in economic education in recent years and no growth in personal finance education. Since 2016, no states added personal finance to their K-12 curriculum. What can help change this statistic, Nan?
Well, I have a little bit of good news, which is in the
'Cause we
last.
need some good news after reading this statistic.
I'm not sure what happened, but in about the last month, we've had 4 other states that have either added or upped their requirement, which is great. And in this country, as you know, education is very local. So it really takes feet on the street. So we have state council in pretty much every state and people affiliated with them who can work it. We have relationships with state treasurers, and parents can be huge, huge advocates at the school, district, and also the state level to create that change. But even if we don't get it legislated, we can still do the work, which is another way that parents can just be really helpful, going to their schools, calling us to do a family financial literacy night where they can get engaged with the kids, and then it can grow from there.
I'm curious which 4 states they are, and if they're big enough to set the example.
Or New Jersey.
New Jersey
other
New
Jersey.
Jersey.
Woo!
Yeah.
New Jersey, good.
New Jersey just added a requirement at the middle school level. Interestingly, when they passed the high school level, it was an unfunded mandate, which meant that there was no money to help get the teachers trained. So Iowa's moved forward, Florida, Kentucky, and Arizona.
And Maryland is one of the states as well that has financial literacy as a mandatory But once again, the issue then you encounter that it's either, now that you have this requirement, what are the tools that you're going to utilize to actually implement it? Which is kind of why it's cool that we have our own facilitators, because what we've come across, a lot of schools are saying now, well, you have your own teachers. This relieves the stress because now we don't have to worry about actually training our teachers. But of course, that's not going to be a long-term decision. And this year we went into 215 schools, but that doesn't allow, we can't go into every school,
Right.
at least not yet. But
Hopefully your team will increase. Some of our viewers may be interested in volunteering and helping so that you can galvanize just some support behind this effort.
Mm-hmm. And then I also want to ask you, Kids Who Bank partnered up with Power 105.1 Breakfast Club, right?
Yes.
To help individuals on their journey of being more financially secure, which is always a great thing. Can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind this partnership?
So to be clear, one of our board members, Andy Suku, he has his own organization, Y2K Credit Solutions. He's very well known for helping people settle their debt consolidation, and helping them build their credit. And he has a very successful history of building credit. So he had a relationship with Power 105.1, and he was able to broker this relationship. So although technically it's Kids Who Bank because he's one of our board members, but directly it's Andy Suku of Y2K Credit Solutions. But it's an amazing relationship because he's on the ground talking about financial literacy for adults. And one of the things that we did at Kids Who Bank, as we went into the schools, we realized a lot of adults were asking questions, which was why it was so important for us to bring in a board member who was already handling a lot of adults and helping them to get their finances in order. So it just happened symbiotically, that it was just a relationship that was brewing. So now we also tackle adults and the parents of these children, and sometimes even the teachers will say, hey, I have this, this plan, and I don't know what to do with the money that's going into my account. Can you help me? And we've opened up a space for that as well.
I love it. Not only are you focused on kids, but adults. It's important that adults know so they can educate
don't
their
leave
kids.
the adults behind.
So we had to change. So we did so much to implement the adults into our lives, because we realized that when we were teaching the kids, sometimes the parents would go, we would say, hey, you can start building your credit at age 13. And then the parent would say, hey, that's not true. And then the kid would come back to us, my mom said that's not true. So we had to really realize that we have to teach the adults as well and their parents, because then one hand washes away what we were teaching them.
Yeah. And Nan, on this show, our viewers are predominantly millennials and Gen Z, and some of the older millennials, they are starting to have kids and they are becoming parents. What tips do you have for these new young parents to teach their kids on the subject?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't be afraid to talk about money, and I think we just heard the perfect example of that. I was really lucky. I grew up in a home where we talked about money. My parents grew up during the Great Depression, so they were always very aware of that, and I got that language, that vocabulary, those good skills about saving before you bought something, and you can have those discussions with your children, and that's probably the most important thing that they can do, because if they're not scared to talk about it, the kids won't be scared to talk about it. And when the kids start taking summer jobs and after-school jobs when they're in their teenage years, that's another great opportunity to start talking to them about what else they can do with that money. Also, 529 plans for your kids. If you can put a little bit of money away, just a little bit, that child knows. And as one of my cousins said to me, he's already got $1,000. Instead, for his second birthday, we'd love it if people would. And all of those small gifts add up, and the power,
especially over time,
the power of compound interest. 18, 20 years from now, it's going to make a difference. So start those 529s for your little tykes.
And then one last thing before we let you go is for our, young parents, how old is old enough? Because you don't want to teach a 1-year-old about this. Normally, when should you start this?
I think you always talk about it. I remember having a candy drawer. I have a big sweet tooth, and I had deposits at the obvious time of the year, and then my parents told me I had withdrawal limits. So I was learning this, right? And if I took too much out to the limit, I ran out of candy faster. So even when they're just really, really little, you can start talking to them about this. And kids are super interested in this. So bring them into the conversation. watch something on TV that's about investing. Have them follow, if they have an Apple iPhone, have them follow Apple stock. That was not a paid deal, but have them follow the stock of a company that they're interested in. Just
like Kellogg's or Nike. Everyone,
Yeah.
all these kids have Jordans, right?
right, exactly. So just have the conversation. It's about hearing the words so that it doesn't scare them. Even if it's a challenging time. Oh, we're not going out to eat this week because it's 2 more weeks until mom or dad starts their new job. Those are great conversations to have. They're real, and it makes the children feel responsible and part of the family.
That's awesome. Nan and Jatali,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
these tips and wisdom and advice for our parents who are watching. And then just congratulations on the work you're doing
Thank
to
you.
arm and educate people
Thank you.
about financial
Thanks for
literacy.
having
Both of
us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.